Okay, I think it probably we'll start. We'll make a start. So we probably have more people joining us in the next few minutes and moments. I think we have a huge number actually registered, so it's great to see. So it's a very warm welcome and good morning, good afternoon, a good evening, or wherever you are on this planet. So you're very welcome to this morning's workshop. And it's a pleasure to really see such a great turnout. So it's my pleasure just to introduce this workshop very briefly, and also to introduce the Public and Patient Involvement Initiative. So my name is Thilo Kroll, and together with Dorris, we are sort of leading the Health Research Board funded PPI, Public Patient Involvement Initiative here at UCD, as part of a national network which involves 7 universities and many national and international partners in Ireland and beyond, many organizations and many patient public representatives. So this is, we call it sometimes also phase 2 of what the Health Research Board and the Irish Research Council have funded. It's called the PPI Ignite initiative that started about 4 years ago and initially funded 5 universities and local partners. So now we're in phase 2, where we're actually in the process of forming a national network involving all these universities very closely, but also all the national partners, including the HRCI, Campus Engage, and many other organizations, and many of you are represented here today. The network is led by Professor Sean Deneen and Aidan Murphy at NUI in Galway, and we're working really very closely together across these 7 universities. So we're very pleased about that, about this big jump that hopefully we can make in terms of public and patient involvement. So I would like to thank the HRB and IRC to make this possible, and also UCD for co-funding really this initiative, and the many partners that are too many to mention. I think we have over 60 partners at the moment, but you can find them all on the website. And Emma and others will be talking about more resources and information in a little while as part of this launch workshop. And I'd also like to thank the senior leadership at UCD and Professor Ola Feely, the Vice Principal for Research, Innovation and Impact, and the many PPI champions and leaders that we already have. Professor McInerney is one of them. We just spoke initially, and you will hear more from her later on as well. And for today, I would like particularly also to thank Emma to make all this happen, for arranging today, and for for supporting this initiative. And I think we'll have a very exciting workshop ahead. It's important that we grow PPI globally, nationally, to give patients and members of the public a voice, involving them actively in research, to make research really better and more impactful. And we have lots of expertise, but we're growing this expertise further, and we're sharing this hopefully through this network more effectively. So we're now playing a very brief video address by our college principal, Professor Cecily Kelleher, who has been really supportive right from the start of PPI, and is an advocate and a driver of PPI in this space as well. So I think I probably best hand over back to Emma at this stage to start the video, if that's okay.
Morning. As principal of the College of Health and Agricultural Sciences, I am Professor Cecily Kelleher, and I extend to you a very warm welcome to the launch of the National Network on Public and Patient Involvement, PPI. I am sorry that I cannot be with you in person today due to another prior commitment. I am delighted to see UCD continue and expand the excellent work in public and patient involvement as part of the National Network on PPI. In my role as the principal of the College of Health and Agricultural Sciences, I have actively supported this work since the Health Research Board and the Irish Research Council funded initially 5 universities to advance PPI. I was the chair of UCD of the steering committee that ensured that PPI developments were visible to and supported by the university senior management. In my personal research, I have seen the value and supported PPI. We need to ensure that population groups will have a voice and will be involved, particularly those seldom heard, in decisions about research. One example from my personal research experience was the All-Ireland Traveller Health Study of 40,000 people across the island of Ireland, which ran from 2007 to 2011, and would not have been possible without the close involvement at all stages of members of the travelling community and their representative organisations, including particularly Pavic Point. Over the past years, we have seen excellent examples of engaged research across the college and the university as a whole, including clinical partners. It is encouraging to see how new researchers will now receive training and support for PPI at an early stage. I'm convinced this investment will also ensure our research will become even more impactful. The National Network on PPI is the logical next step to harness the complementary expertise we have in Ireland to advance patient and public involvement. The collaboration across 7 Irish universities is unprecedented, and you have a great programme in front of you today. It is my pleasure to officially launch the National Network on PPI for UCD and to wish it the best of success. I would also like to express my thanks to the HRB and the IRC for funding this initiative. Thank you, Thilo and colleagues.
So thank you very much, and thanks for that introduction, Thilo, and as well to Professor Kelleher. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what's going to happen for the rest of the morning. So we have myself, I will give an introduction to PPI and to some of the resources that are available within UCD. We will then have a number of snapshot presentations from some of our national and international colleagues on resources available on PPI for researchers. And we will then have a panel discussion with those presenters or their colleagues to ask any follow-up questions. So without further ado, I will just share my screen again. Lovely. Great. So just to give you a brief overview to what public and patient involvement actually is. So we're all from the same starting point. So to introduce myself, my name is Dr. Emma Dorris. I'm the Program Manager for PPI Ignite Network at UCD, and I'm the new PPIE Project Officer at UCD Research. So I come from a scientific background, and the way I was introduced to public and patient involvement was probably slightly different to how many other people were introduced. So I came into it from the point of view of open science practices. So back in 2010, with a review paper back in 2018, there was a quite controversial paper that was released, and it suggested that up to 85% of research funding on medical research, specifically health and medical research, was actually wasted. And the ways that it was wasted was because people were either not asking a relevant research question at the start, the design or methodology was not appropriate to answer the question they were asking, the publishing wasn't accessible, so people couldn't use the findings of the research, or the reporting was insufficient, so it wasn't clear, complete, or accurate enough for others to replicate it. This led to the development of something that is called responsible research and innovation. This is a term primarily used in Europe. And RRI is an approach that implies that societal actors, which includes researchers, as well as citizens, policymakers, and civil society organizations, that we work together in the whole research and innovation process to better align that process and its outcomes with the values, needs, and expectations of society. In Europe, we are particularly good at producing academic papers. We are great at knowledge generation. Where we often fall down is translating that knowledge into actual use. And RRI is about bridging that gap between generation of knowledge and actual use of knowledge for the benefit of the community and the society in general. So in Europe, RRI was a key action of the Science with and for Society programme, and it is now a cross-cutting issue in Horizon Europe. So during H2020, they invested about 50 million per year on evaluating different aspects of RRI to see if it had benefits. They concluded that indeed it did. It brought additional benefits to research, and therefore they have implemented it across all missions in the upcoming Horizon Europe programme. So what is RRI? Well, it has 6 domains. So ethics, science education, open access, governance, gender equality, and public engagement. And PPI fits within the public engagement category. So when we talk about public engagement, it's a really broad sphere. So it encompasses many different aspects. We have here what's known as the avocado, or the spectrum of public engagement. And this was developed by the UCD Community of Practice on Public Engagement. But if we look at it more simply, it really divides public engagement into a couple of different categories. There's one-way dialogue, and that's things like news articles, lab tours, public lectures, where you are giving information about your research out, but there isn't a two-way reciprocal knowledge exchange. Or you have consult, which is the other way, where the public gives information to the researcher, but again, there's no two-way knowledge exchange within that. So when we discuss public and patient involvement, what we're discussing are these higher levels of public engagement where there is two-way dialogue. The public is involved throughout the research process and has a level of decision-making within that process, and often will jointly plan parts of the research cycle. And even stronger than that is partnership, where there is an equal or joint level of decision making, and often public partners may lead the project. And I should be clear here, when I talk about public partners, I'm not talking about the general public. I'm talking about the specific interested public for whatever your research is. So that might be, for example, someone living with rheumatoid arthritis might be the public in question, or somebody living with rheumatoid arthritis refractory to biologics might be the specific public. It's just a general term for the very specific group of people who have this particular knowledge and expertise that you collaborate with. So PPI is about increasing research relevance and cooperating with people living with experience to enable careful and deliberate study design. It is a way of trying to close some of the gaps to improve research impact. And we do this because decisions made in the light of an adequate understanding of the issues are likely to be better than decisions made in the absence of such understanding. So we make decisions around the research question we ask, about how we conduct our research, and if we have better dialogue with the people who that research is intended for, then our research will be better and it will be more impactful. The benefit of public and patient involvement is being acknowledged by our national and international funders. So the HRB in Ireland have really been the driving force behind PPI. Since 2014, they started introducing a question on public and patient involvement in research within their grant applications. And since then, they have really driven forward the concept, the ethos, and the practice of PPI in Ireland. Horizon Europe, as mentioned, has recently really doubled down on public engagement, and they do define it as that two-way process. So within their mission statement, they talk about citizens and civil society's involvement in co-creating research and innovation agendas and contents make research more relevant and responsive to society and strengthens co-ownership and trust in scientific evidence and innovation. Citizen engagement, of which PPI is a subcategory, is embedded across all their missions. The Irish Research Council have supported engaged research practices for a number of years. And again, in their most recent strategy, they have put a focus down on engaged research within Ireland. But we need to be very careful to move beyond tokenism. We're very aware that researchers particularly wear many hats, that your agenda is already incredibly full. Our goal is not to add an additional element to your already busy schedule. It's to ensure that when you are putting in this effort of doing this world-class research, that that research then goes beyond just being knowledge generation and it gets into impact. And we acknowledge that systems need to be in place to support researchers, or that it cannot possibly advance beyond tokenism except in exceptional circumstances. And this is part of a wider academic sea change. So the PPI Ignite Network is part of the way that we're looking to change the culture around this and put those systems in place. The PPI Ignite Network has a national office and 7 lead sites, of which UCD is one of them. We have 10 national partners, some of which you're going to hear from later. And then UCD itself has 9 local partners, which ranges from different types of social and health charities, as well as Dr. Adini Hay and the Ireland East Hospital Group. And we work together to create resources and to put changes in place to support public involvement in research. Across the national network, we're a number of work packages actively working to develop the systems to support the practice of PPI. UCD are co-leading work package 3 in association with HRCI, and that's to embed PPI locally and nationally. So we're looking at how institutions support PPI currently and how we can support institutions to do this to an even greater extent than they currently are. So what types of supports do we have in place here at UCD? Well, we have the UCD Informal Shared Learning Group for PPI. So this is a monthly meeting, and it's a safe space for researchers to come and discuss any questions or queries that they have about PPI and learn from their peers and build a network of people who are also working within PPI. We have a different discussion topic each month, and what we discuss is entirely up to the group. It's a completely responsive network in that we respond to the needs of the group as and when they arise. People are all very welcome to join this, and the details for it are in the attendee pack that should have been sent out to you this morning and one of your Eventbrite links. We also have a number of different resources, including the PPI Planning Canvas video. We have a costing template and we have a planning tool. These can all be found on our web page, the details of which again are in that attendee pack, but I will pop in the chat after this. The PPI planning tool is designed specifically for researchers to plan how to involve the public in their research at right from the preconception start all the way through budgeting and what supports that they will need throughout the life cycle of a grant. It's based on a published planning tool that was developed for preclinical and laboratory-based researchers, but has been adapted to be more general. We have a video available which takes you through exactly how this can be used to help you as an individual researcher to plan your PPI. We also have developed a cost calculator. So this is in association with our colleagues in ethics and HR and a few others within UCD. And it is around budgeting for PPI. So it's developed into 5 different categories: payment and remuneration, what expenses you might need to cover, the actual cost of the involvement activities itself, the potential cost of staffing for involvement, and any other costs. And this helps you to develop a detailed plan so that you can budget appropriately for any upcoming grants applications that you may have. Beyond this, more centrally within UCD, on the UCD Research and Innovation portal, we have a section on public engagement and engaged research. This morning, we launched the Engage Your Research Guidance document, which is an introductory guide to engaging and involving the public in research. It's a more general guide in that it's for all types of engaged research, but certainly would also cover public and patient involvement as well. And additionally, to those of you who are from UCD, it's important to note that PPI activities and public engagement activities more generally are part of the Research Careers Framework, and you can add each of your PPI activities onto your RMS profile. You do this via UCD Connect. You go to your RMS profile, you go to your public engagement activity, and then the drop-down menu, you will see PPI. This helps not just you in terms of it being part of your professional record, but it helps us because we can see what types of activities are going on, and we can be responsive to that and develop resources based on what is happening in different schools. And perhaps if we notice gaps in certain schools as well, it really is helpful for us to know what's going on. So I would really encourage anybody who is engaging in PPI to fill this out. And finally, I'd just like to acknowledge the funders. PPI Ignite Network at UCD is funded by UCD, the Irish Research Council, and the Health Research Board. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I will take, if there's any immediate questions now, I will take them. Otherwise, we will move on to our snapshot of other research. So just give me 1 second to get it up and running. There we go. Oh, the joys of technology. Great. Okay, so I'm going to go into a snapshot. We have 5 of our partners talking. We have IPPOSI, we have PPI Ignite at DCU, we have the Health Research, HRCI, Health Research Charities Ireland, we have PPI Ignite at Limerick, and we have our international colleagues at EUPATI going to give a snapshot presentation of their different resources that they have for researchers, after which we'll have a panel discussion.
Hello, my name's Derick Mitchell. I'm the Chief Executive of IPPOSI, and I'm delighted to be here this morning thanks to Emma and the UCD PPI Ignite team. IPPOSI stands for the Irish Platform for Patient Organisation, Science and Industry, which is in a mouthful, but suffice to say that we're a pretty unique organisation in that we've been created by patient groups in Ireland to act as a platform between patients and the other actors and stakeholders in health research and innovation in Ireland. So that varies from government to academic science to industry, but all with the objective of putting patients at the very heart of health innovation. And IPPOSI is what you might call a key opinion leader in the whole area of PPI, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the resources that are available to researchers both on our website and as part of our membership. And the membership of IPPOSI is growing all the time, and we're a patient-led public-private partnership, and that means that our funding comes from both the state and also the companies that join the platform, and that is a 50-50 split. But in terms of our actual members, we're probably the largest network of patient groups and individual patients in the country, but we also have quite a sizable scientific or academic membership, and researchers and scientists and healthcare professionals can join IPPOSI for free and indeed interact with the other members through our events and our initiatives. And indeed, I'm going to talk to you about some of the benefits that have been realized over the years as part of that. In terms of the organization, just to give you a flavor of what we do, we have 3 pillars of our organization. We focus very much on educating patients, but also we're really positive about promoting true partnerships between researchers and academic science with patient groups and indeed our patient members. And the central pillar is our involve pillar, and that centers around patient and public involvement. And then we also have what you might call a more advocacy pillar, where we focus on really generating impact that patients want to see in terms of the reform agenda and change at the regulatory or the legislative level that's independent of specific conditions. So we're all about creating spaces. And what do I mean by that? Well, we do lots of different types of activities that are designed to engage and involve patients, but also include the other stakeholders that are in the health innovation space. And I'm going to give you a flavor of some of these this morning. And hopefully you'll go onto our website afterwards and maybe even consider joining us. So one of the online repositories we have is in the area of clinical research. And this is a PPI repository. It's designed to encourage and to guide people who are performing clinical research to include PPI in their research. And there's lots of international and national examples of how you might go about doing that. It's something we've worked closely with the National Clinical Trials Office in creating, and we find that it's a pretty popular resource. The more recent online resource that we've created is our PPI Hub. And this is where because we have connections with a lot of the state agencies, the universities and the companies in Ireland, we felt that we were well placed to provide kind of like a snapshot of PPI in Ireland currently. And you can go onto this subsite of the IPPOSI website. It's at ppihub.iposi.ie, where you can really find out who has been doing PPI in Ireland, and you can explore some of the cases that are there. There's almost 100, but you can also contribute your own case if you've been doing PPI to whatever extent. And we're going to build on this initiative in future years, where we're looking to make stronger connections with the patients of IPPOSI and indeed patient groups. So we're going to be building on this all over the next while, and we're also looking to capture the experience, because for anybody who's done PPI or is looking to get into PPI, there's very much an experience as part of it, and we're looking to capture that as part of the cases that we're highlighting as part of this. So increasingly in IPPOSI, we are performing this matchmaking exercise where we have a patient education program, and our graduates of that program really are very motivated. They report having more confidence and more willingness to engage, but equally IPPOSI's been quite strong about impressing the need for appropriate accommodation and support and compensation for patients who are increasingly putting themselves forward with a fairly significant commitment to get involved with these opportunities. And patients need to be supported in these roles that are increasingly there for them. And the profiles of our educated patients are again on our website. And just to highlight our patient education program, something we're very proud of in IPPOSI. We've been running it for a number of years, and we have an increasing cohort of these educated, informed graduates who are more than willing to listen to and to talk to researchers and academics about their research, but in a structured way. And this is where the whole area of PPI is fast becoming much more structured in Ireland. So our patient education program, you can see the modules that it's geared towards currently, and we're building on this for future iterations of the course, where we're looking at areas such as research ethics and digital health. And one of the ways in which we've been creating spaces for those graduates to engage with researchers has been in the area of project level input. And this is our Dragon's Den, which we're increasingly doing a lot more of. And this is where, if you're a course provider, or if you're overviewing a postgraduate or even a postdoctoral program, we have a mechanism that allows you, if you have a project element of it, where patients can review these projects, and the researchers get to pitch to the dragons, as it were, and they're evaluated. So it's something that we've been doing over the last couple of years, and again is in our little repertoire of different spaces that we've been creating. And lastly, I'll just emphasize the digital discussions that we've been doing. These have replaced our more traditional kind of conferences, but they are ongoing on topics of patients that patients feel are of relevance to them. And again, you can sign up for these publicly available events. So that's it in a nutshell. You can learn more, lots more, on our website. You can sign up to our newsletter. You can join IPPOSI as a scientific member. It's all free. Please feel free to get in contact with our office, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Whiston. I'm the Program Manager of the PPI Ignite Network at DCU. This is the DCU component of the National PPI Ignite Network. It's funded by the Health Research Board, the Irish Research Council and DCU, and our lead here in DCU is Professor Veronica Lambert. I'd like to share some details with you on a resource that we're running here that is open to everybody. It's a shared learning group focusing on public and patient development, or PPI, with children and young people. So we bring together quite a wide variety of attendees, some of whom are new to PPI, some who are new to PPI with children and young people, and some who have a wealth of experience in this area. And it's very much focused on PPI with children and young people, focused on discussing what we have found works, maybe perhaps doesn't work so well, and some resources and best practice and examples that we have within this area. It's quite a wide audience that we have that joined this group. There's researchers, students, and clinicians, patients, members of the public, patient and community organisations, some people who are new to this, some people who have a wealth of experience, and everybody comes together and shares their knowledge and expertise and their thoughts that they have in this area. We meet every 2 months, always on a Thursday from 1 to 2, and very strictly from 1 to 2 to make it easier for everybody to attend during their lunchtime. We spend time looking and discussing the challenges or the helpful tips or resources that people have come across within the last 2 months. And then we spend the bulk of time focused on a specific topic or question that's set in advance. So to give you an example, the last 2 groups have focused on the ethics of working within PPI and children and young people. And we have also spent time looking at developing and running a children and young person advisory group. And the aim of the group is really to increase understanding and awareness of PPI with children and young people, and to do this through focusing and discussing best practice and examples that we have in this area. The purpose really is to increase that awareness and understanding of best practice, to encourage PPI with children and young people, and to do this through creating a safe space for sharing of ideas and experience and practical tips of what people have found has worked for them, or what we can come across within the literature or from their organisations. We allow time to focus on questions or feedback for plans or what's working within specific projects on PPI with children and young people once these questions are submitted in advance, and then we can dedicate that time to discussing the questions from a particular project during a meeting. The development of this shared learning group has really come from the members. So earlier this year, the PPI Ignite Network at DCU, alongside the National PPI Ignite Network, ran a seminar series focused on PPI with children and young people. So for example, we looked at a rights-based approach to PPI with children and young people. We looked at participatory approaches. We looked at using technology to engage children and young people. We looked at examples of including children and young people in ethical procedures. And we looked at developing and setting up young person advisory groups. And we could see when we were planning the seminar series that you can really improve the amount of PPI with children and young people that's taking place, but also the quality of what's taking place if people have continued support from their peers. So continued access to resources that we know that are helpful, and that space to share challenges and what's working well for them. And we could also see from people that were attending that there was a huge amount of interest in this area in Ireland, but also internationally as well. And that people were very interested in more support and more discussion of what's working in this area. So we decided to go ahead and set up a shared learning group to fill that gap. And this was very much developed based on what we got back from the members. So based on what people were interested in from the seminar series, from the questions that people answered when they signed up to the group, very simple, straightforward questions in terms of what people would like to get out of the group, what topics they would like us to discuss, and very much based on member input. And so everything in terms of the logistics, in terms of what we spent our time discussing, the topics that we're looking at, when groups are run, this has all come from the members of our group, and that's that wide audience that we have, from researchers to patients, members of public and patient and community organisations. So if this is something that you would be interested in joining, we would be absolutely delighted to have you. Sign up is through a Google form. The link is on the slide here, and that will add you to the mailing list. So each month, or every 2 months, we'll let you know when the next meeting is taking place. We'll let you know what the topic is for the next discussion, and if there is a resource to go along with that, if it's a seminar recording or a particular paper that we're going to focus on, that will all be circulated, alongside an opportunity to give suggestions of what you would like to focus on, a topic or question that you have for the group in general, or if it isn't related to a particular project that we're working on. The next meeting is on Thursday, the 3rd of February next year, from 1 to 2. And the other thing that can be helpful to be aware of for the shared learning group is that we do have a number of seminar recordings based on a series that we ran earlier this year. Any recordings available from that are on this link here, so you can access those there. And if you do have any questions, do feel free to get in touch. My details are here on the screen now, so do feel free to get in touch if you do have any questions. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Avril Kennan. I am the CEO of Health Research Charities Ireland, and I've been asked to give you a little overview of some PPI resources that we have produced that you might find useful. So first of all, a little bit of context. This is who we are. We're an umbrella organisation for approximately 40 charities that all have a very strong focus on health and social care research. By virtue of the fact that they represent patient and public communities, and that they are also closely linked with research groups, they play a very important role in PPI. The best way I can describe what we do is through our current strategic aims. So our first strategic aim is PPI, so very, very strong focus for us. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about what we're doing in that space. Our second aim is to increase the quantity and quality of health research through the joint funding scheme. This is a scheme that we run in partnership with the HRB, and through which our member organisations can secure matched funding for research that they want to fund. Our third aim is to support our members and to increase their capacity to engage in health research. And we do this in all sorts of ways, through meetings, networking, events, and producing resources to support them in their work. And the fourth one is to positively influence Ireland's development as an excellent place to do health research more broadly. So we do this through various advocacy activities, but very particularly through running the Irish Health Research Forum. If you haven't joined us for some of our events, perhaps have a look at that section of our website and sign up to the IHRF mailing list. So I want to particularly talk about our role in PPI. One of the most important things we do is we run a PPI shared learning group for our member organisations, where they can support each other, and we can identify where they particularly need support, where the gaps are, and produce resources to help them in their own PPI activities. We're also very proud to be a national partner on the PPI Ignite Network, the new national PPI Ignite Network. And finally, in the bit I'm going to talk further, is we do produce some PPI resources to help our members in particular, but that are also, I think, very applicable to anybody who's undertaking PPI. And what I'm going to do for the last little bit of this talk is to just tell you about 3 of those resources. You will find them all on our website on this page. They're all on the same page. So when you get a chance, go and have a look there. And there's some additional resources as well. The first one I want to talk about is what we've called a guide to developing a PPI strategy. And that's really, I suppose, around making a start in PPI, making a plan for what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and putting that down on paper. It's in our former branding, so apologies for any confusion that causes. We will probably rebrand it in our current branding shortly, but it'll be up on the same website when we do. We had 14 health research charities, both our own members and also some UK health research charities that we have close links with, support us in the development of this guide, so that there's very strong input from them. And very quickly, what it is it's very practical, quite short, and it really just talks you through the things you need to think about in getting started with PPI. So for example, outlining your vision, it talks about things you need to think about, some suggested statements that you might include within your vision, defining what you mean by PPI, who will you involve, how will you involve them, and so on. And it also includes a section on language in PPI, like for example, is it okay to call people patients? So just some very helpful guidance, I think, as you get started. The second resource, or two resources in this case, I want to talk about are case studies that we have developed. These are specifically in relation to our joint funding scheme with the Health Research Board that I mentioned. And what we did is, for those projects that were assessed at the panel in 2020, we pulled out a couple that scored very strongly in PPI, and we wrote down exactly what they did and how they achieved those high scores. In each case, these case studies give a little bit of background to the project, and as you can see, they're very different projects. One is on immune profiles in kidney disease, and another one on diet in diet quality in cystic fibrosis. And in each of them, they take the application form step by step and talk about what they included in each section of the application form around PPI. It is particularly to the application form for the joint funding scheme, but actually many of the HRB forms in particular are quite similar, and I think it would be useful in applying for any funding where you want to demonstrate well thought out and thoughtful PPI. And finally, the last one I want to mention is one we're particularly proud of. It's a toolkit for starting a PPI relationship. And again, it was developed with charities in mind, but is absolutely applicable to anybody who wants to start a PPI relationship. This was done in partnership with PPI Ignite and Trinity College, and a special mention to Michael Foley there. It was also co-created with members of our shared learning group and individual PPI contributors from their own communities, and also with the support of UK PPI expert Beck Handley. So we did a lot of diverse and helpful input in producing this toolkit. And it's, again, we like the practical guides. It's very, very practical, and it talks through how you build a relationship and how you ensure that the whole PPI process is enjoyable and meaningful for everybody involved, so that you get the best out of it and so that people want to continue in that relationship. And it particularly focuses on what a first workshop for PPI contributors might look like, and takes you through that step by step. It is a toolkit, so you can take what you want from it and adapt it to your own purposes. So those are the three things I wanted to tell you about. As I said, you will find them all here on our website, plus additional resources. And thank you very much for listening.
Hi everyone, I'm McInerney. I'm the University of Limerick Programme Manager for the PPI Ignite Network, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the University of Limerick Public and Patient Involvement Summer School. So the PPI Summer School is an annual event. It takes place over a day and a half at the end of June each year. The first PPI Summer School took place in 2016, and it was set up because it was clear at the time that PPI was becoming increasingly important in the Irish health research landscape. And it was also clear that there was a need for training and capacity building in PPI. So what we wanted to do was provide a summer school that would be suitable for all stakeholders to come together and to learn together, and also to provide some networking opportunities for stakeholders. So who is the PPI Summer School for? Well, it's really for anyone who wants to develop their knowledge of PPI in health research. And that includes people who are completely new to PPI, and also to those who want to develop their knowledge and their skills. So each year we have participants who are students, who are researchers, who are patient and community organizations, PPI contributors, and health service providers. A bit then about the format of the summer school. It's a mixture of keynote speakers followed by parallel workshops, and usually with some panel discussions as well. The public and patient voice is very important in the summer school, and many of our sessions are either led or co-led by our patient and community partners. The PPI Summer School is designed to be interactive, and it's designed to encourage the sharing of resources. We aim to provide opportunities for networking over coffee, over lunch, and the summer school barbecue. So just to give you a little bit more information about the types of topics that are covered in our workshops. If you're new to PPI, then you might be interested in an introduction to PPI and participatory health research. You might be interested in a workshop on finding research partners or collaborative research design. And you might be interested in hearing from others about how they integrated PPI into their PhD projects. And just to give you a selection of other workshops then that we've run over the years. Involvement for All is a workshop about involving people who may be considered hard to reach or unable to get involved in research. How to write a good PPI grant section is a workshop run by the HRB, which gives tips and advice about integrating PPI into grant applications. Dilemma cafes are cafes where the participants can bring any questions or issues about their PPI practice and where they can be explored in an informal setting. Expert Patients in Action is a workshop run by IPPOSI and EUPATI on the role of patients and patient organizations in the health research environment. And in recent years, we've also run workshops on using arts-based methods in PPI. So the first 4 years of the PPI Summer School has taken place in person at University of Limerick. The last 2 years, the PPI Summer School has run online. We will be planning the 2022 Summer School over the coming months, and do stay in touch for further information about that. So finally, just to say thank you for listening, and we really do hope to see you at University of Limerick for the PPI Summer School in the near future. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Maria Dutarte and I'm the Executive Director of EUPATI.
Hello everyone from my side as well. My name is Jana Popova and I'm the EUPATI Patient Engagement Training Coordinator.
We would like to present to you the EUPATI trainings and activities today. EUPATI is an initiative that was started in 2012, and we focus on education and training for patients and patient representatives, and we do this so that they would be valuable contributors to medicine's research and development. Our trainings are non-disease specific, and our activities have worldwide reach but European focus, and we function as a multi-stakeholder initiative, a public-private partnership, and work with all the different stakeholders involved, as you can see on this slide. Our main activity is the Patient Expert Training Program that we have been running for 5 years now. It's an expert level training on medicines R&D and combines online and face-to-face elements. It takes about 14 months to complete. And so far we have around 200 graduates from this program. They are called EUPATI Fellows, and this number is growing. The training has recently been transformed into a new online format called EUPATI Open Classroom, where anyone from anywhere in the world can access the training online. We also have an online toolbox. It is an open archive of materials, information about medicines R&D and patient engagement, which is available in 13 languages and is accessed by over 4 million users worldwide. And the material, it comes in different formats. We have short articles, presentations, webinars, images, infographics, and so on. EUPATI is active in 23 countries, mainly in Europe, but also in Japan. We have established national platforms in these countries that replicate EUPATI's activities at the national level. These entities are also multi-stakeholder structures and work with the local stakeholders. And 2 years ago, EUPATI introduced a new activity, so-called stakeholder trainings in patient engagement. These short trainings are focusing on the basics of patient engagement and are addressing academia and industry professionals. And we have trained over 250 professionals so far. And I would like to invite now my colleague Jana to speak more about these type of trainings.
Thank you very much, Maria. One of the main outcomes of our trainings is the EUPATI patient engagement roadmap. You can see here the 4 different categories where we are focused on. We are focusing on research priorities, research design and planning, research conduct and operations, and also market authorization and post-approval. This is the main highlight in our EUPATI trainings, and you can find more information about the patient engagement roadmap also in the EUPATI website. Also, another important aspect of the experience of EUPATI was that we gathered important knowledge about patient engagement in medicine research and development and patients' interactions with other stakeholders. We are talking about interaction with academic researchers, industry, regulators, and HTA bodies. And this has resulted in the publication of 4 EUPATI guidances for patient engagement and also a number of training programs for different stakeholders. One of our main activities is related to the organization of the EUPATI Fundamentals training and also the in-house trainings. EUPATI Fundamental training is a 2-day online training which runs 3 times per year. The next edition will take place on 1st and 2nd March 2022. Fundamentals training has already reached more than 150 industry and academic representatives who have completed it since 2020. There are no special preliminary requirements if you want to attend the training course. The EUPATI Fundamentals trainings is organized in 2 days from 10 Central European Time to 4 Central European Time each day, and it requires active participation in those 2 days. The aim of this training is to provide an introduction to the principles of patient engagement and how to establish strong collaboration with patient representatives and patients' organizations. Also, our main focus of the training remains the basic knowledge about patient involvement with an overall introduction to the standards and best practices in the field. Also, EUPATI provides opportunities for in-house and tailor-made trainings about patient engagement for the industry and the academia. The trainings are specially designed and tailored to the needs of the individual teams and organizations. We provide in-house trainings based on the individual request. They are flexible depending on the required timing of the individual teams or organizations. Also, previous experience in the field of patient engagement is not required. The most important thing is to be interested in the topic and to wish to increase your knowledge about patient engagement and interaction with patients. One of the main outcomes related to our training portfolio is that our trainings are unique in their structure. They create this neutral atmosphere of collaboration and shared experiences where all stakeholders are equal and are able to interact with each other. Also, our trainings are co-designed and co-delivered by patients, academic or industry representatives, and they provide opportunities for interactive discussions with participants about patient engagement, and also they present real-life scenarios and best practices how to increase the understanding about research and development in that field. Now I would like to hand over to Maria for some final inputs.
Thank you so much, Jana. Lastly, I would like to introduce you to an exciting activity that we are launching early next year, EUPATI Connect, which is a matchmaking service putting together EUPATI fellows, those expert patients who have gone through our training together with our partners from industry and academia. And this activity then allows collaboration between the two, and it can be also a very good opportunity for you to start working together with our expert patients, and we are happy to provide more information. So thank you so much on our behalf, and thank you for inviting us, and we look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you very much to all of our speakers. I'm going to invite the people who were speaking to join us now for a panel discussion. So if there are any questions, please do pop them in the chat. Alternatively, you can also raise your hand if you want to ask your question yourself. So I'm just going to bring up our speakers now as I find you. So any of you there, please make sure your video is switched on. And I'm going to start by just doing a round table and asking everybody to introduce themselves. We have one or two people here who were not the presenters, but are colleagues of our presenters. So I'm going to ask you just to give a quick introduction. So Sinead, would you like to give yourself a quick introduction?
Yes, hi everybody. Thanks for those great presentations, lots of information there. My name is Sinead Hickey. I am Head of Research at DEBRA Ireland, and I also sit on the board of the HRCI, and I've worked on some of the resources that Avril Kennan would have presented in her presentation. So if you have any questions on those, please let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Sinead. Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Laura Kavanagh here on behalf of Derick Mitchell and with IPPOSI, the Irish platform for patient organisation, science and industry. I'm the research and advocacy manager, so I would have been involved in some of the projects that Derick presented, the PPI hub in particular, so happy to take any questions.
Maria, we heard from you. Do you want to give a quick reintroduction?
Yes, Maria Dutarte here from EUPATI. Happy to also answer any questions raised by the video.
And Una?
Hi everyone, really pleased to be with UCD today, albeit virtually. I'm Una McInerney. I'm the Programme Manager for the PPI Ignite Network at University of Limerick.
And Lucy?
Should have had myself unmuted. Hello everybody, my name is Lucy Whiston. I'm the Programme Manager of PPI Ignite Network at DCU. So I've been there for about 4 years now with the PPI Ignite Network. And our presentation today very much focused on a shared learning group that we run looking at PPI with children and young people. So any questions you have, feel free to ask. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present on the shared learning group today. And for all of the other presentations, it's great to get such a comprehensive overview of resources that are out there. It's going to be fabulous for everybody to have. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Before I kick off with a couple of questions, I'm just going to note that we also have a central website for the PPI Ignite Network, which is ppinetwork.ie, and a lot of contact details as well as resources and a calendar of events are available on that. The details of that are also included in the attendee pack, the links to the PPI Ignite Network website. So can I just ask, first of all, open it up around what actually motivated each of you to set off on the journey into PPI? So I might start with you, Lucy.
Yeah, so I suppose my journey to PPI kind of started quite early on in my research career. All the research that I was involved in really included PPI in some sense, because going back a while, it was PPI without actually being called PPI. So very early on in my contact with research, I could really see the huge value and the absolute necessity of including the people that your research is going to impact on. And then following on from that, I went on to do my PhD, which very much focused on patient and family involvement within healthcare design and delivery, and PPI in the research side obviously fed very strongly into that. And then I went into the role a program manager at the PPI Ignite Network at DCU. But really it is very much the huge impact that I could see all the way along that patients and the member of the public could have on research.
Thanks, Lucy. Maria, I might pass that to you because your background isn't directly with regards to research, I believe. So what drew you towards patient involvement?
Indeed, I have been facilitating research at different universities and science foundations earlier, but I'm not a researcher myself. What really motivated me to take on this position in EUPATI was my experience in a patient organization. I worked for the European AIDS group for a long time, and I really saw the patient experts in action, discussing treatment options and new ideas for research directly with pharmaceutical companies and academic researchers, and I saw the immense knowledge and the skills that the patients had developed, and in particular in the context of a Euro Community Advisory Board that organization had put together with expert patients and especially the pharmaceutical companies developing new HIV treatments. And that really then motivated me to work on such a training as we offer through EUPATI, which is cross-disease training. So I have been, very inspired by the experience of different patients from different disease areas, and we see that the experience is often the same. So the patients go through this generic training and can then apply it in their own disease area. So this has really been the key motivation for me. Thank you.
Thanks. Jana.
Thanks, Emma. I guess I began my career really in the community and voluntary sector and working in international development as a therapist and a trainer. When I joined University of Limerick, it was really in the development of programs and project management. So I made the sidestep into research in 2014 and joined the team in the School of Medicine in UL, and then very steep learning curve about PPI and what it was. But I suppose it felt quite a natural connection for me just with my background and then my experience in the university sector. I saw a lot of connections. It really made sense. And yeah, I've been with the PPI Research Unit now for probably 7 years, including the first round of PPI Ignite and now onto the network. So yeah, that's my background.
Thanks, Jana. Sinead?
I suppose for me, I've worked with DEBRA Ireland and DEBRA International for the last 4 years, and the one thing we did see is a big gap in patients being involved in research. We noticed that both researchers and industry were contacting us ad hoc, looking for information, but a lot of the time it was too late in the day. So through working with the HRCI, we were able to kind of start working on tools to get our patients involved in research at a much earlier stage. And then for us, because we work for a representative rare disease, we really which has no treatment at the moment, we really wanted to focus on patient impact and what the patients really wanted. And through engaging them with the research over the last few years, we've really seen the impact that has made for us. So yes, it was through gaps where researchers were working in silos on their own, and by incorporating PPI through the toolkits, we were able to really help with that. So
thanks, Sinead. Laura?
Yes, I guess a bit like Una, I came from an international development background in the human rights field. So I guess my kind of thing has always been around the right to participate, and I guess more importantly, the right to kind of partner. And I guess as Sinead has just said there, I was quite surprised when I joined IPPOSI several years back, kind of the I guess the gaps that exist and the opportunities that exist for patients to become more involved in research. And so I think when IPPOSI started down the route of the education program and trying to maybe introduce patients who were interested in the area to clinical research, clinical trials, medicines, regulation, health technology assessment, a number of different topics. And as we were seeing the graduates come out of this program, they were really enthusiastic, passionate, engaged people. They wanted to become involved. I mean, they were struggling on a daily basis with chronic and rare conditions, but like the amount of energy that they still had to give was really inspiring. So I think that's kind of where we always come from, and certainly where I come from myself in this area.
Great, thanks so much, Laura. And I think that's something you find, that it is by nature a much more interdisciplinary group of people that work towards this field. And I think that's one of the side benefits of PPI, is that it naturally opens up research to more interdisciplinary research as well, because it starts to look at the larger context and not just the task at hand. So we have a question from Grania here, and she's asking about now she's talking about recruiting patients. I presume she means engaging with patients for involvement, and if she thinks if you think the clinic is an appropriate place to do that. So I'll start off with this, Grania. It's always an odd one. In some places, in some situations, the clinic is an appropriate place to do it, but there's always the question of power dynamics, and that's one of the biggest obstacles to overcome. If you're working with someone in a partnership, in a collaboration, and there's already an existing power imbalance there, it's very, very difficult to get over that hurdle. However, in saying that, it's not necessarily impossible, and it does depend on the skills and the expertise, and a lot of the times just the type of person who is engaging with the patients. A lot of the time what will happen is people may engage in clinic, but not necessarily with their own patients, but maybe with patients of somebody else. However, power imbalance is a big issue, and that's where things like really clear expectations and kind of those aspects of it, being very transparent about the reasons behind the engagement and making sure that it is, it is a free collaboration and there isn't any pressure associated. Does anybody else want to take up and add any additional comments on that? Anybody? Sinead, do you want to say anything on that regards? Because you're coming from a very, dealing with quite a small population of people.
Yeah, I suppose the big thing there is making sure if you're going through clinics that there's also there's the openness that they feel empowered to be able to contribute. Sometimes in a clinic it's very much clinician, nurses versus patients. So if you're going through that course, I suppose making sure that your interaction is that you make sure that they feel empowered to actually contribute, that it's a different kind of a format to the clinics.
Great, thank you. Okay, so Lorna, who is based in PPI Ignite in RCSI. Hello, Lorna, it's great to have you here. She has a question on the difference between engaged research, citizen science, and PPI, and what the difference or the relationships are. So a lot of this is around semantics, and some of it is that it's discipline specific. So public engagement and how it is, what it is called in different places varies. So PPI is very much a UK and Irish term. Public engagement and citizen engagement would be much more common across Europe, and then patient engagement in certain other places. In regards to citizen science, there actually isn't a single definition of it. Some people consider citizen science as a natural sciences discipline version of PPI. Others kind of see it more as being just a data collection aspect. there is the European Society on Citizen Science have, rather than define it, they give 10 principles that you shouldn't be meeting if you are doing true citizen science, and it's very similar to the principles that we would use for PPI. Does anybody else want to come in there? Because it is a question that's often confused. Lucy.
Yeah. I was delighted to see that question coming in, because I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the room. This is a conversation I find myself having time and time again about the overlaps, and are they different and are they together? But really what we normally come back to is that if you were thinking about doing PPI yourself or getting involved in a project that has PPI, is really thinking about what it is that you're going to be doing and what it is that the group is working towards. So once it is involving people that the research is going to impact, and once it is meaningfully involving people, any decisions that are being made, the terminology will then be determined, kind of like what Emma said, depending on the discipline and the area, the focus of the research. But I was delighted to see that question coming in, because it is something that comes up time and time again, and it's getting more and more pertinent, I think, at the moment.
Maria, do you want to say a word there? Do you find any confusion in the terminologies used across different nationalities and geography, basically?
Yes, I think we tend to use patient engagement as the key word, but I do recognize that there are different terms in use. We align with the guidelines of EUPATI with patient engagement and patient involvement, but then also guidelines produced by a recent IMI project called Paradigm. I'm happy to share those as well, that have defined patient engagement as well at the European level and multi-stakeholder level. So yeah, we tend to, as we are part of this landscape, we tend to use those words. But it's true that many of our partners, we talk about the same thing, but in different terms.
Absolutely. There's a question in here from Andre Valente from the Chapalamode Foundation. So it's two questions. So the first one, what do you feel are the greatest challenges and difficulties in getting less PPI experienced researchers and patient organizations involved in PPI, especially making it a motivated and structured part of the researchers' processes, integrated and sustainable for the future? So I might first of all go to Laura on that, around engaging from the patient organization perspective.
I guess one of the challenges is engaging at the right time, getting the patient organizations involved as early on in the process as possible. Speaking to Lucy's point again, just so that it feels meaningful, and that really it's kind of a partnership going forward, rather than maybe some of the other kind of methods of engaging people which you referred to in your presentation around information or consultation. You're really looking at the higher level steps of partnership and collaboration. So I think early is the biggest challenge in that respect.
Thanks, Laura. Una, do you want to come in there? Around engaging, how do you engage researchers that are less experienced?
Yeah, I think there's a few different aspects to this, and there's some of the obvious ones that are easier to fix are things like training and capacity building and peer support, like the shared learning networks that we've heard about, or the PPI club as we call it in UL. And in some ways they're easier to sort. I think there are other sort of more systemic and structural issues in universities that can make it quite difficult as well. So, maybe the way that funding applications work, because yes, we would really promote the idea that while you're even thinking about your research idea, before you've even decided what your research idea is, you're already engaging and trying to find the right research question. And sometimes within the university system, having the time and the space or the funding to do that can be quite difficult. So, I think I'd like to see in the next 5 years that we would sort of address some of those issues that are a little bit more challenging, I think.
Yeah, and my view is always that it's, you're trying to change a culture, and it involves a degree of power devolution. And, you have to have a very good reason for people to willingly devolve the power that they've had. People who are successful in academia, it's because they're successful within the system the way it is. And, it may not be for any negative reasons, but that's what works for them. So you're trying to get people to change, and that is, you know, change is an incredibly difficult thing to do. So, you know, it really needs structural changes, when it needs quite a large degree of evidence, and it needs both kind of the top down and the bottom up approach. And we are seeing that particularly in the Irish landscape, where we kind of have our funders really now starting to drive it from that aspect, as well as so much of the organizations that we have on the ground level who have been working for quite a number of years on building these up. But I think in terms of sustainability, that's always the big thing. We have to create things in place that will really allow it to be sustainable, and that does require systematic change, and that is so difficult. Does anybody else want to come in there on that? Maybe move on. We've got a few questions to go to.
May I add something?
Maria.
I also believe in the need for there is a need for training, and also the empowerment that can bring. We have been working with different project consortia, so with European funded projects, also training the consortia, and now actually building that in as one part of the budget when a proposal is submitted. So we've been working with researchers who are putting together proposals, and already at that stage, as the previous speaker mentioned, already at that stage when planning the proposal or the project, bringing in patient perspectives, but also then budgeting for that need for extra training and capacity building of the different researchers in the consortia. And I believe this is kind of a new approach to be proactively thinking of what is needed for that consortium. So we are actively doing that at the moment, and have a training curriculum that we can propose.
Great. Thanks, Maria. Thanks. And I think an important thing to note is that kind of the relationship building aspect of working with it doesn't start when a grant call is out. It should really be pre-existing, because so much of it is around, is the right question actually being asked? And you need to have built up that relationship and had those dialogues and kind of constructed that question together. So there is, there is quite a big focus on that. And part of that is why we developed the PPI Ignite Network the way it is, and include so many patient organizations and patient partners. But there is still a huge amount of work around how we create those spaces and make those dialogues, you know, easy for people to have. So there is still certainly work to be done in this area. So there's a question on PPI and more basic research. So what are your experiences in thinking about aligning basic research with impact? So I think Andre primed this, because he knows that is my area that I work in quite a lot. And we do have a lot of researchers who work in basic research or in non-patient facing or non-public facing research disciplines who don't think necessarily that PPI applies. But it's about, like we have kind of discussed, it's about things like concepts and context and understanding the larger picture that you work within. And, you know, when I was a lab-based researcher, I would engage with my clinical colleagues, even if I wasn't working on a clinical project, because they had expertise and knowledge that I didn't, in the same way that I would engage with people living with the disease area I was working on, because they had knowledge and expertise that I didn't. And it's about having that shared knowledge so that we can do everything that we do better. If we know more information at the very start, then we construct our research to be more relevant outcomes of it, and those more relevant outcomes will lead to greater impact. And so PPI and basic research, sometimes it needs a little bit of teasing out, because, you know, it may not be necessarily in the face-to-face methods, or it might be more in accountability and governance and the concept at the start of actually why a project is going on. But basic research is the very, very beginning of, you know, the snowball that will eventually lead to impact. So it's definitely an area that there hasn't been enough work done on. with regards to PPI, but it is a growing area, and it is a target area for us within the network, but also for, I know a number of people are working on that in Europe. And Maria, I believe that you're involved in a European project. Do you want to mention anything in that regards?
Yes, indeed. So we, as you know, we started also as an IMI project ourselves. So we are very close to this way of working in international projects. We currently work with EIT Health and have an ongoing project there, and we will start again with IMI in January. We are also involved in other initiatives with, for example, in HTAI, together with European Patients Forum. And so you wanted to know about our engagement and our role in these particular projects, or was there a specific?
Just if there was anything you wanted to mention specifically around kind of the basic.
Yes. So EUPATI has let's say a threefold approach to these projects. We want to include the national platforms as much as possible. So actually one of the pending proposals, we have a collaboration with EUPATI there, also on digital health, and crossing fingers that it will be a positive outcome. But so I think the strength of these networks is often then put into practice through this project collaboration. And we also then actively work with the EUPATI fellows. So we do our own matchmaking there and bringing their expertise when we work on projects. As we as an organization cannot speak we don't carry the voice of the patient themselves. We want them to speak for themselves. So the trained fellows are then brought into the work actively. So that's, I think, our approach to working on European projects.
Sinead.
Yeah, just going back to the early stage research, that's something that we have funded a lot through DEBRA International, and that is a question that we get a lot. How can we involve patients in early stage research? And when you're looking at it, when you're in it, it's very hard to understand how you can do it, but there's so many opportunities. And by working with patients early on, before your research question, and getting them involved in grant applications, you can really see the benefit that patients have, both through the project and things like for the researcher to get an understanding of the disease area by talking to the actual patients as well absolutely has a huge impact on both the researcher's motivation and also how they carry out their research. A big thing we find as well is we very much, as a patient organisation, communicate the research to our EB community, and we find that the patients are very good at helping to translate the science into layman's terms for that communication. So there's plenty of opportunities to involve patients in early stage research, we find. And again, by working through your planning tools, you can really plan how that can work, and you'll see how you can do it as you're planning it. So there's plenty of opportunity, really.
I just wanted to highlight as well that this is something that's come across our desk quite a bit in DCU, and particularly through work package 1. So the overall PPI Ignite network is organised around 5 different work packages, and we co-lead work package 1 with HRCI and NUIG. And it's very much focused on training and resources for building capacity for PPI. We did a very quick scoping review to see what is in existence out there, and spent a good bit of time working with people. Well, what gaps do we really need to fill, and what ones do we need to fill very quickly? And one of the resounding ones that came back was very much focusing on PPI in early stage or lab-based resources. So that is an area that we're starting to focus on now. There's a sub-working group that's been up and running, and they're going to have their first meeting next week. So it is an area that we'll be looking at more within the PPI Ignite network. We do know there is a lot of questions and a lot of support needed out there for that area.
Great, and I am very aware that we are very short on time, but we'll take one more question. We have a question from a postgraduate researcher who's saying, if you haven't had the opportunity to have PPI involvement from the start and you're doing a master's or a PhD program, how can you meaningfully, what's the way to meaningfully involve patients or people living with a particular experience within your research. If perhaps you haven't done that pre-budgeting stage, you haven't had that the pre-conceptual stage of this, the relationship building, can you still involve in a good and meaningful way? So I might ask Laura, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is always a little bit of a challenge. Within IPPOSI, we have a community of patients who have kind of expressed their willingness to get involved in various opportunities, PPI opportunities with research. So, I mean, we have process whereby people who are seeking to link up with our patient community can complete a template, and we can share an opportunity with the community and see whether anyone would be interested in connecting up. I mean, these people are extraordinarily generous with their time, and you know, I think many are understanding of the constraints at the moment around planning for PPI and funding for PPI. So many do volunteer to give their time. So there's always that opportunity to connect up with patients through different sort of umbrella associations like IPPOSI, I would say.
Yeah, and I would also add that we would have, if you look at the Engaged Research Manual that's gone up, there are a number of questions that we have, and it's about asking around the reasons, okay, if you want to go midway through, and about how and why, and have you kind of had a critical discussion in yourself and reflection as to why you want to involve people to make sure it's going to be meaningful and mutual, at which stage you can be very transparent about the limitations that you may have while you're approaching. And if you're very transparent and open with regards to expectations, then there are, you know, then there might be more opportunities to engage. I will also note, because our colleague from PPI Ignite Network at UCC couldn't be here, that there is a shared learning group for doctoral students, specifically for people who are doctoral students, whereby if you are having issues or if you want to do some peer learning with fellow doctoral students, that is available. Lucy, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I would just say that it is a great time to get experience under your belt for PPI. I know you've got a huge amount on your plate when you're doing a master or PhD, but it is a very good time in your research career and experience to start to get those experiences and build those relationships and contacts. And it is definitely something that once you dedicate the time to thinking about it and really considering how you can do what you can in a very meaningful way, and being very upfront about that in terms of any relationships that you're building, so people know what the expectations are, and also then at the other end in terms of being able to report on your research and the PPI that you have done. So you've spent time being very clear on why you're doing PPI, and if you are starting late, that's fine. What impact, really strong, meaningful impact, can your PPI contributors have from this point onwards?
And you've had a great overview of the many resources that are available and the contacts that are there. There is the attendee pack that should have landed in your emails. If not, do let me know. PPI@ucd.ie, and I will send it on. I'm just very conscious of time. I do note that Aisling has very thankfully popped in a registration link, because we have a fireside chat at 3 p.m. this afternoon, which will discuss more of the ethos and a discussion around PPI and UCD and some of the values around PPI as well. You're all very welcome to attend that. But for now, I will just say a very heartfelt thank you to all of our panelists, all of our presenters, and all of our attendees. PPI@UCD.ie is the website, is the email for us in the PPI Ignite Network at UCD. Please do get in contact. We're very eager to hear from you and very responsive to your needs. So if you tell us what the gaps are right there, we will endeavour to help you with those. So thank you all very, very much for joining us.